Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition and of Gaia Thrift, which is where I'm at. And we are having a lovely, slightly warmer Friday today. As you know, yesterday we had snow. My ancient nemesis showed its face again. And no doubt we'll do so many times this winter. This morning, we received a lovely mound of donations from Miss Becky Blundy. Thank you, Becky, for your donations. And this, of course, is Midday with Reverend Don. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments into whatever platform you're watching on. They should show up here in the chat room. And my guest today is Ed the Pagan. Hi, Ed.
Hey, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm glad you got some more donations. This has been an interesting project. And
Yes.
next Friday, right after your show, next Friday, we're going to have this
Mm,
massive Big Friday auction trying to raise a bunch of money. So, with
yes.
amazing items. So, yeah.
So one of the things we got today is a vintage hippie coat from the late 1960s, early 1970s.
hmm
Um, Blue jean coat with leather fringe. Very, very, very interesting. And hello to Reverend Michael in the chat room. It's good to see you. So yeah, and a great many books as well,
Oh, good.
and quite a few clothes, and quite a good number of donations.
Oh,
So
that's good
again,
news.
it is.
I
We've
think
been
people
very generous.
people don't understand this is about a long term project. I mean, we need these donations right away to get
Mhm.
ourselves active, but people don't understand that what we're trying to do, and there's reasons that we're going to talk about that are showing up to get a revenue stream so that we can start providing housing for our
Yes,
elderly and for other sort of people.
and
And
hello to
so,
Renee.
yeah, and we're going to be the websites. I think is going to be updated this weekend, and we're starting to talk a little bit more about it. But
Yeah,
without that need to have a revenue. People will say, "Oh, well, why don't you?" You know, because I think we've all discussed the need for elder care and other items
yes,
that are necessary. But today, I guess we're going to talk about something different.
yes. We actually have a news story today. Theoretically, this is our weekly roundup of news stories, but I don't always have a lot of things to talk about. But yeah, there's an interesting piece this morning, and that is a video apparently on X, formerly Twitter, um, which is ostensibly attacking Dr. Rachel Levine, who is
Mhm.
the senior out transgendered person in the current administration. And the attack is by putting her face onto the body of Selena Fox in a video. And hello to a unique one in the chat room. It's good to see you. And this is very interesting because, of course, everyone is dealing with this as an attack on Dr. Levine, which, of course, it is. But the more important question for us is why is this an attack by linking her to our movement and to one of our senior priestesses? And it's worth noting that the commentary on the original video um, directly links paganism and Satanism together. And this ultimately is a religious attack on our community, as well as on Dr. Levine and the transgender community. And that's what we wanted to talk about. One of the things about this that's very important for us to take notice of is that technology is now at a point that someone else's face can be pretty seamlessly implanted into a video where you can't necessarily tell it was not originally them. And all kinds of mischief can come from that.
Let's be clear. We've had that technology for a long time, but it took
Mm,
time and expense. Now it can be done under 5 minutes.
Yes.
through the AI algorithms and through the AI systems such as Perplexity AI, Canvas, so they can make these videos faster, quicker. So when they would do these sort of Photoshop things, they were detectable because of certain things, and this was eventually detectable, but also
Mm,
because um, it was useful. But you had to make sure you were attacking somebody that was worthwhile because of the amount of time, the amount of
mm,
energy, the amount of pixelation corrections you had to do to make it really worthwhile. And that was usually done to disqualify someone or to harm someone. And then it became a question: is those images fake? And of
mm.
course, they were discovered, and it does their damage in a minute. Remember, all these accusations don't have a long term program in and of themselves. And that's what I want to talk to. But what is the long term implication of this one? They're now establishing that paganism, Wicca, all of these sort of religious New Agers, even certain branches of Christianity, disqualify you from being a sensible, reasonable person. And LGBTQ, that sort of thing is also another one. If you're LGBT, and even if sometimes if you're a woman, you're not as good as, say, a white male in that role, but then you're LGBT, you're better. If you're a white Christian woman, you're better than that. This is all about creating status in our community, but essentially, it is about creating who is not acceptable, what
Mm.
behaviors are not acceptable.
Well, and that's the issue here because, why would it be an attack to identify this person as a pagan priestess?
Hmm.
Obviously, they're attempting to position our community as utterly unacceptable, which, we've been talking about that for a long time, but they're not wasting any time in doing.
No, we've crossed the Rubicon. I mean, take a look at which was defense manual. I'm two has come out. There's the old ones available, which has a lot about this. I mean,
Mm,
back in 2006, I was talking about all these different tactics,
yeah.
and I think we need to start. And I'll start covering them more if people are interested. But people do not want to listen. Even today, I got rebuked today about how I viewed the world and how they saw it. There's still a very strong belief that we can save it through democracy.
Mm,
That somehow the Democrats will rally around themselves and get themselves fixed. They will, we will take back the government. They can't inflict all of these sort of things. It just can't be done. We won't do it. And everything they say we wouldn't done, the other side was doing.
yeah.
Today's is not a coup. The government of the United States is not a coup.
No,
Everybody's trying to call it a coup. If it were a coup, we could fight against it. It's not a coup.
no,
January 6th was an attempt at a coup. But
no. This was an honest election.
and somebody was reporting something about trust. Do
Mm,
you know this is the most trusted election in 2020, the 21st century? It's the first truly undisputed. The only other one that was truly undisputed was the 2004 reelection of George Bush.
I do say I find it amazing.
Hmm.
All of the supposed election fraud that was being talked about is suddenly no longer an issue. But I'm not surprised.
So, in a lot of ways, pagans are Pollyannas through and through.
Mm,
Um, they are definitely that. And what do I mean by that? They always believe on the better side that spirit provide. Everything comes from spirit, and they're a lot very similar to the liberal Christian groups, who also say the same thing. And
mm,
there's this sort of idea that no matter what happens, no matter how awful or how bad or how it changes things, right? There's this
mm,
idea um, of the idea of that everything's going to turn out right because like Martin Luther King says, justice is long. His trail of history is long, but it goes towards justice. I personally do believe that, but they've ignored a lot of things that say, "Oh, we shouldn't worry about it. They won't do that." No, we won't have Nazis walking in the middle of Ohio. We won't have the Trinity Knights now putting out uh, flyers in Indiana and Kentucky. And Trinity Knights are a nasty group. And now they're fully advocated. You talk about Proud Boys. We've talked about educational systems like that would never be able to put prayer back in school. they're putting prayer back in school, that we never see Bibles being handed out in schools. And when they do, we would have a right to fight them. Understand that these are all been actions that we should have taken more action to.
Mm-hmm.
We should have taken a much more different, but we didn't. And not because we didn't have resources. We can argue that later, but it's because we just didn't believe it. We had gotten into a point where we were in the sort of wonderful world of abundance. And I still believe we're an abundant society. I think we're the richest society, and you'll hear a bunch of lies about how bad America is. But we're the best economy in the world, and there's more opportunities than ever before. But we're being led down this primrose path, just like the French Revolution, just like the robber barons of the Old West, that the economy is bad. Therefore, anything to fix it is bad. And if you try to stop business from fixing it, it's bad. If you try to make it so that schools act as social mediators, it's bad. Because at the end of the day, inequality is the number one system of control.
Mm-hmm.
If I can make you feel superior to someone else, then you're going to feel a little bit better, and you're going to want to preserve. We're less likely to try bringing somebody up than to feel gloating over them.
Mm-hmm.
And so pagans are kind of download, and we have a status problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not an author, if you're not a high priest, if you're not anything else, and even if you're a high priest of certain traditions, we have this constant system of status of who's important. And we listen to them just like we listen to our celebrities. And guess what? They're not leaders. I am now making a very big statement that we have hardly any pagan leaders. We have so few pagan leaders. And they have let us. What?
Oh, Unique One in the chat room makes the statement that we had a false sense of security, which is certainly true.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a false sense. I think that's a wrong sense. We had a certain amount of security, and we overextended what the value of it is. False security means we had none. And then I kind of agree that's a way of interpreting. That's a shorthand way of interpreting. We had security, and we had security over and over again, and we threw it away, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so let me give you an example of the most important fight of the early 90s. Before the internet, and we got into the internet really early. We were there at the beginning of that, and we saw a lot of lessons. We are number one we're the number one players in it, and we are tiny, infinitely small, but we were one of the earliest players. So we played in radio, and we did Peggy's Night Radio. We did all sorts of things. So we have constantly worked in our media, and the reason why we worked in media is because we didn't trust the media in the 90s. And what they would constantly do is they would take the narrative of the Christian and utilize pagans to create titillating arguments. Sometimes they were good, and sometimes the people who were doing the media training, were able to get the pagans out. But it was always against the Christian background. And we fought so hard to get our side of the story told all over the place. Christian Broadcast Network did a story that was okay. It was pretty good.
It was.
I scratched my nose and go, no, it wasn't, but it was better than everything else around it.
Well, and it was better than we expected it to be.
Better than expected. And one of the people says, "Oh, we teach mind control."
Yes,
that was a comment. Because that was a comment. He was teaching Sylvan mind control. We were talking about the other type of mind control, right?
Yeah, and it didn't occur to him until later how that could be taken out of context. But amazingly, they didn't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And hello to Crystal in the chat room.
Yep. And so today we're in a bigger fight. So what happened? We fought really hard to get into the media. We fought, people don't realize I sent out over 50, right? Way up into 2007, 2008. I sent over 50 press releases.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those press releases had all of them had good impact. But do you know the one that had a major impact?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know it, but they don't. And still to this day, more than 12,000 people. Pagans and Christians agree Wicca is to be the third religion in America.
Yeah.
And I wrote a line in there that was picked up, and people have repeated it over and over again. And I'm trying to say, "Oh no, you didn't. I did. I've proven it." beyond a reasonable doubt. And that I basically started a statement that Wicca was, paganism, Wicca was the fastest growing religion in America.
Hmm.
And I quoted people like Chas Clifton at the time and Phyllis Carrot that we need to grow. And we were growing at an amazing pace. It wasn't
Yeah.
sticking. It was like snowflakes that didn't stick. But it became the major news story. And over again, one of the rumors of our community, one of the superstitions in our community, let me call it a false statement of misinformation, is that paganism is the fastest growing religion. It's not. It's not even close in America. It's Islam. And
Hmm.
evangelical Christians, though they're seen different, is the fastest growing religions. And of course, we all know, and this is the one trick we are using in another superstition, and I hate this with a compassion, is the none, no religion. They're
Yeah.
just being reported as the non-religionists or spiritual but not religious. That makes them pagans. We're always trying to add to our numbers, but we're never trying to add to our community.
Yes.
We don't care how much we have in our community. We care how many people are saying it. And no, wait, 90% of pagans are solitary. Of course they are, because our communities are difficult. Hmm?
Hmm.
And then we get back to that Pollyanna effort, that the Pollyanna effort is saying they can't do this. People aren't going to believe that. They create all sorts of screens of not dealing with the issue. And
Hmm.
now the new issue, Meta just changed their terms today. On January 1st, 2025, it's going to make it a lot easier to remove you. They have no legal requirement to let you have a page.
No.
No, just this, and you go, what? It's a free press. No, it is not. It's
No.
like they can kick you out of going into a bar. You can be kicked out of a social club. You can be kicked out of any number of private businesses. Now they have to make public accommodations, which is the fights over the gay cakes. Bakers doing gay cakes, because there is a law that was passed for during the civil rights era that says if you're serving the public, you have to make a public accommodation to all that can be served. This
Hmm.
was people being denied, and this is the lunchroom incident. So you can go into a lunchroom and can't be denied.
Yeah.
You can be, but you have to be if you're not following certain health standards. If you're coming off the street and you're reeking, they're allowed to reject you.
There has to be a reason,
Right?
theoretically.
There has to be a reason. But if I go into, say, a restaurant, and I've done this, I went to a soul food restaurant, and they made me feel very welcome. So let me know in Indiana, but I felt really uncomfortable. But it was an all black restaurant. It was a soul food
Mhm.
restaurant, and me and the lovely Marianne went in there. And at first, we were like really hesitant. Maybe we should leave this space. And the woman came up. Oh, hi, how you doing? What you doing? I said, well, we came down to eat at your buffet because it said buffet, soul food. What a wonderful thing! It was great food. It
Mhm.
was Tokai in Kikimo, Indiana, and the hostess thought we might be walking out because we may have felt a little uncomfortable. And she says, "Come, welcome. Let's get to your seat." And she made us feel welcome. What was the mistake in there? We felt uncomfortable. Therefore, we were not going to spend our money at this
Mm.
restaurant. We weren't going to have a wonderful meal. They didn't do it. They didn't say it. In
No,
fact, she immediately remedied what she felt was difficult, and we never had a problem.
absolutely.
So being welcomed to spaces that you're not normally want to is one of those great American dreams, but we don't have it. Now I've been kicked out of a bar, and let me be very honest. In Florida, now you're smiling at this. Almost all the bars in Jacksonville around Chosen Path are racist,
Mhm.
white supremacist racist. If anyone knows me, I love to have a beer or two in dive bars. That's just one of those favorite things. I like really good dive bars. Meaning, I don't like the fancy stuff. Don't get me to Applebee's. Don't get me to these craft beers. I love craft beer. But if I really would just want to relax, I love to go to these smaller bars. But in Jacksonville, hmm?
Mhm.
In Jacksonville, they are very white supremacists. They didn't care. The white ones didn't care. And I walked into a black one. Oh, the guy was very polite. I will tell you, to this day, he was so kind and polite, the bartender, in
Mhm.
the wicked racist way. And I came up and said, I'd like to have a bar. What do you got on tap? And he goes, well, what does everybody drink? He gave me a beer. I paid for it. I put money on the table and says, he paid, took the money, gave it to me and says, I would like you to enjoy your beer. And then I'd like you to leave. You're not welcome here. I went, okay. So we have these sort of divisions. We want our own spaces. Here's where that, and we can argue against it all day. What if it becomes more legal? This is what they did illegal. I've gone into gay bars where I've been kicked out. I've been asked to leave. That was my early thing.
Is the thing, because you were talking about the law requiring serving everyone. We're talking about a scenario now in which a lot of the enforcement of these things is about to be gutted, and the laws may themselves be repealed, and we'll have to deal with that if that happens.
But before any of that happens, that's months away.
Yeah,
we have a lot of time to fix this. We need to get our community to stop being so Pollyanna. I just said it to Mary. It says, how do we get the story? There's only one news source in our community. I don't care how many social groups. There's one social group called Begging News Daily. Never, ever has any news. Never. Never. He welcomes his new members every day, and he does a few little kind of memes. Never wants some pagan news. Witchcraft TV, bless their souls, have failed in their attempt to get even a weekly news show. I have failed a number of times to get longer term news shows. If we don't have our ability to communicate, where we're most vulnerable, and let me bring it all into conclusion. Today's attack with deep fakes to set a doctor, a member of the administration of our government, saying that you can't be a witch, means you shouldn't be a witch and you should reject them, is also Meta saying you can be disconnected for any going against community standards. If we are hit this, there is Serpent's Kiss, who's fighting a major battle legally in Philadelphia against not doing readings, even though they've gone through the laws of not being able to do readings, and that the sheriff who's being sued has done it almost illegally and probably illegally. He's going after them in a way that can't be. Instead of being resolved through the court systems or doing that, he's being very super aggressive because he knows the courts aren't going to come to him. And that's temporary because we just have a lot more courts that are red. Is your religion enough? Is your sexuality enough? Is your women being a woman enough? Are we being enough not to be attacked? And the answer is no. Of course not. So let me go ahead and say this, and maybe we need to clip this beat. What makes Selena such a unique figure? Because there's a second, more hidden agenda. This was not an accident. This wasn't somebody just grabbing a photograph. This isn't somebody just oh, that looks really good. Let's go ahead and defame this character. This was a concerted attack at Selena Fox. I really, truly believe that. And no one else is going to agree with me. Your Pollyanna attitudes are going to get you. What is her number one job in this fight?
Civil rights.
Lady Liberty League. So not only did they take this picture of a member of the government, not only did they take a pagan ritual where they could have took hundreds of rituals. Now Selena's very clean, very that, and the way she does her photographs lends itself to her.
Yeah.
She doesn't move a lot. She does a really good job being on court. But is it any accident that it is the primary person who's going to lead the fight in 2025 was attacked today with a deep fake to be used to discredit them?
I think you're completely correct. I do not think there was anything random about who they chose.
No.
Because there are so many they could have chosen. And is probably the single most prominent pagan priestess in the country in terms of public appearances.
Yep. So there's no accidents here. Unique One is asking, what do you think is going to change after January 20th? It's going to go both slow and fast. One is, of course, the argument over education. Two, the right of censorship by private entities. X, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Why is TikTok being trying to take out? Everybody's trying to say, "Oh, I said Chinese." No, because it doesn't put a censorship on it that can be anti-American at times. Not anti-American, anti-consumerist. People can question it. So
Mm-hmm.
they want to take TikTok out. Blue Sky, which is of course a con. I mean, it's a great system. It's decentralized. I love it. But everybody thinks it's a liberal organization. It's not. But okay, let me give you my top 5 really quick. And I guess we'll end the show of what's going to change. 1, we're going to see the restoration of the Occult Symbols Act. Except it may become more nationalized. What is the Occult Symbols Act? And today there was a bill out there to try to change this. The Occult Symbols Act is saying that any symbol that is used by gangs and terrorists cannot be used publicly. It will be seen as a sign of terrorism. And therefore, you can be subject to having it removed. We've seen this in schools.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this in schools. Pentagrams,
Yep.
gang symbols, Islamic symbols. 2, any not-for-profit that now emerges as using occult symbols or not being following in an occult way. And this is because of the fight against Scientologists, and there's been a number of fights against the Breathers, all these sort of radical extremists. It's going to give the IRS and the government more permission, right? A lot more permission to remove that 501c status, that not-for-profit, and mark you as a terrorist organization, where everybody then has to stop. They can confiscate all the fucking money and all the property.
Mm-hmm.
3, after passing the Occult Symbolism Act and the idea that you can be removed, will limit the amount of education that these organizations can do. Now, we don't have a really great publishing system. We have a lot of great publishers coming up. We have a lot of amazing Caroline Publishing, Llewellyn. But what's going to protect those books from being censored constantly? It's not enough that we produce them. How do we get them to the marketplace?
Mm-hmm.
4, by increasing the occult symbolism action by these sort of terrorist organizations, anyone who writes these books, who gets into the marketplace, can have them removed as a terrorist act. Remember, they're discrediting us. 4, they can also pass laws that they can sue the organization if children are reading these books and they're seen as pornographic. Anyone who's they could make it so that if you hand a book, What is Wicca, to a child, and what's it to define a child? Anyone under the age of 21. Right? The children millennial acts. We've worked with a lot of children today. The Caroline tradition has so many children warrior. So now we've got the Occult Symbolism Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act. Publish a not a very good publishing act where the private industry can censor them.
Mm-hmm.
4, parents can then charge the organizations that are handling these materials as trying to change their children, because there's going to be a protection of children's religious rights, which is going to be actually the opposite. That a parent has control of their children's religious rights and not the child. Now, that's true today, but they're going to make it so that no one can try to influence them. And the way they're going to do that, they're going to put Bibles in schools, Bible clubs. And I want to take the Satanic Church, the Satanic Temple, which is doing a great job competing with them in groups. They're one of the targeted organizations because they're fighting to have their groups put into place. And then 5, and this is the one that is, if you follow any of these criteria, or maybe not, you may not become eligible. Our organization might help when the disasters come. We won't be able to run food banks. We won't be able to run aid like we just did like what's just happened with Byron Ballard, and we were able to do an online. Our little bit was to do an online telethon, which raised a couple $1,000s. Other people are sending them, and just Byron Ballard wants to get more things. What if she were not denied the right to do that? What if all of us are denied the right to do it? Not because we're not. It's not because we're good human beings, or not because it's the right thing to do. But in the end, is because we're terrorists. We're symbolic, emotional, spiritual terrorists. And that is what they're expecting. Remember, Christianity is a war religion. At the end of the day, when they don't get their way and get their obedience, remember, they're the number one slavers in history.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they institutionalized. I mean, everybody used slaves. I'm not talking historically slaves or something, but it was an institution and an industry under the Christian faith, and they used the Bible. And it is the Bible to do so.
Yeah.
Now we're facing that, so we're looking. Those are the 5 things you want to know, and those are the 5 things I think are right off the top. What they're doing to Selena, what they're doing to others. They're going to be handing out these flyers. We're going to talk more about it. But here's what we need more than anything.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does that answer the question for everybody? I know we're all going over a little bit, but this is an important subject for me. And I'll be talking about
to Magical Cloud and to Lynn Townsend in the chat room.
Mm-hmm. So there we go. You want to know the things that are directly impact us. Everybody's going to be Pollyanna about it. Don't believe their understanding. They're already in the process of it. Today, in the House, they have the bill, H.R. 9596, which is going to extend the right to declare organization terrorists. And it's very minimal. If one of your members goes rogue, does something stupid, they're going to paint us all with the same brush. And there we go. Those are the first 5 things, I think, and they're falling into line of what they're going to do against us. And why?
Yeah.
To remove us from public consumption, to allow us to talk to the public directly. The meta rules, the extra rules, why are they taking out TikTok? Is keep us from talking to each other and the communication, and then not support ourselves when we need to, forcing us back. And as when they cut food stamps, when they cut all this stuff, we can't help them because we can't form. Therefore, what at the end of the day, where do they go for food?
Christian church.
Remember, they can starve us. Remember, our food industry is not in our control. And that's why I like Terry Riley and his group out there doing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
So what can you do today? Well, if you really want tactics to talk and fight, my hair. It's so random, I know, folks. I have a little bit of that. But to remember, don't, all right, I'm going to give up. But do remember, what can you do today? Well, I've been telling people, one of the things I told people is back up everything they want if they want to have any sort of education in the future. So you can hide it on flash sticks. I mean, so you can hide it, as well as build these libraries. I mean, I like libraries and everything else, and I love them. But why am I so much onto the sort of the record systems? 2, start looking at security. If you're keeping records available, look at security online. So they can't get into your list, so they can't have communist lists. If they can get into your system and get your lists of members, they have now the right to go after them. I mean, I have some Pollyanna things, but what you need to do now is look at food banks. You need to start building your relationships locally, and you need to start looking at local. And get off your Pollyanna attitude that we are not in trouble, this isn't going to get worse, and start looking at being protective. I'm not saying fight a war. God, we will be taken out and shot. I think that we're not that far from that. Put in jail for life, die in jail, put into camps. You can talk about all sorts of rogues, and some of them aren't bad. I mean, they can just arrest us. I mean, after all, did you not see the prison stocks going up? Like major? So they put us in prisoners, put us into jails and make us into slaves. They've already done it. So, yeah. So, this idea, they're going to take us up and shoot us against the wall. They don't have to.
No.
And we're so Pollyanna that we'll say everybody who goes to jail deserved it. So where does this end up? The most outspoken in our community are now on the shooting line. They're building cases against them to eventually take their groups away from them, take care of their symbology, their words, their language, and then finally remove them from the public, one way or the other. I hope that answers what I think is going to happen, Unique One.
Thank you, Ed. We want to take a moment now for a message from our sponsors. And Here we go.
Ready to unlock the secrets of the universe? Join me, Rev Don Lewis, for my metaphysical and magic auctions at Gaia Thrift at whatnot.com. Discover fascinating artifacts, mystical crystals, and rare and unusual books that could change your life. Don't miss this chance to bring a little magic into your world. Rev Don's Metaphysical and Magic Auctions, where the extraordinary can become yours.
And thank you to our sponsors. Thank you, Ed the Pagan, for being our guest today. Thank everyone for joining us for the program. I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you're interested in the Witch Wars Defense Manual Volume 2, you can get that at CorellianPublishing.com or at Amazon.com. And with that, let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Monday will be a best of. I'll be back on Tuesday, and I will see you then. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do in our lives, and we ask you to help us to make the best decisions as we go into an uncertain future, to help us to do the next right thing, and to find the most practical strategies for continued prosperity and survival. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love. Knowing you are always with us, still from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. May you be blessed now and always, and I will see you again next week.